This podcast is sponsored by FortuneFavours.ie. FortuneFavours.ie is a home workout equipment store and your one-stop shop for all home gym equipment. They are well known for their adjustable dumbbells, which combine 15 different weights in one dumbbell. They have both 24 kg and 40 kg adjustable dumbbells. Check the link in the bio of this episode for more information. So, welcome back to the podcast. I'm here with GAA Editz creator Gearoid Howley, just to discuss this weekend's hurling action, all our hurling quarterfinals, of course, and the Tailteann Cup semi-finals on Sunday. Like, all these games are live on RT, 4 huge games to look forward to here, and we're in the business end of the championship. I suppose, first of all, Gearoid, how you been over the last few days? I hear you got exams as well, and the Clare Limerick game, of course, a few weeks ago. What a game that was to go to. So, how you been over the last few weeks?
Grand, sure. Finished my exams today, thank God. And yeah, geez, that was some game of hurling. What a game to be at. The atmosphere is just class. Like,
yeah, absolutely. It was a brilliant game of hurling, all right. And we'll talk about the games in a little while as well. I just wanted to get your opinions on it because earlier on I asked you to come onto the podcast, and then last night the Clare players, Rory Hayes and Peter Duggan, both got off of their suspensions. They can now play on Saturday against Wexford. Keaton Fahy the same for Galway against Cork. Like, I've heard your opinions and all that on your stories and things like that. You were pretty angry with how it played out at the start of the week, but now that they have got off from them suspensions, how do you feel now?
obviously, they're huge boosts. I suppose the fire will be in the bellies with them two now against Wexford on Saturday, but I didn't really think it was a fair decision, I'll be honest with you. Like, I wouldn't be fond of the idea of retrospective bans or anything like that. I think it's kind of going down the wrong road in some sense. Just TV reviews don't sit right with me. Like, but I wasn't expecting them to get off, to be honest with you. Obviously, they shouldn't have done what they did. I just think when the game's over, leave it at that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we see with so many players, they've got bans taken off them, but you have to say with the Clare players, they deserve to get the bans taken off them. And yeah, before we get into the games, actually, I just wanted to get your opinions as well of the championship as a whole, like the hurling championship. The Munster championship was brilliant, like brilliant for you. Obviously, Clare got to the Munster final. Cork recovered for myself as well. Like, it was a brilliant, like Waterford going out early as well. The Leinster championship, I think personally, the final didn't really set alight. Galway, Kilkenny, maybe the game at Salthill did. But other than that, like, the Munster championship has been very good. Leinster, to me anyway, the quality wasn't that great.
Yeah, Munster was brilliant. I'd be happy, man. Anyway, Clare, just I wasn't really expecting the Munster final or the performance that they put in to go and beat, and like to keep with Limerick twice for 70 minutes is unbelievable too. But Leinster wasn't bad by any means, but you can still kind of see the standard difference in it. Just Munster was so competitive. Like, to see the All Ireland contender, Limerick's biggest contender, go out, and like Cork kind of scraped through towards the end as well. It was a roller coaster anyway.
It was definitely, and 2 games to look forward to here. First of all, obviously Cork against Galway on at 1:45 on Saturday in the Simple Stadium, live on RT Sport. Like, it's a huge game. Obviously, the 2 Clare players got off, Peter Duggan and Rory Hayes. Another player got off as well that's gone under the radar with Keaton Fahy for Galway. I honestly don't think he would have made much of a difference to the game. But looking at his challenge against Kilkenny, do you think he deserved to get off that ban?
I'm going to sound a bit biased, but I thought the best he'd get would be one game like the other 2 lads. I didn't expect him to get off, like I said, but he was kind of one of the standouts for Galway. I thought in the Leinster final, obviously it wasn't a great game, but he's kind of a target for their puckouts too. I wasn't expecting him to get off like with the other 2 lads as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a bit of a boost for Galway to have him back into the team. But at the same time, Galway still had very good forwards in Brian Concannon, Conor Whelan, very good form, and I'm sure Galway will bring that to the table on Saturday. This is actually going to be a very interesting game because Cork are going with a rich vein of form. Maybe not so much against Antrim last week, most people might argue, but personally, I'd say Antrim were a brilliant team last week. It was tough to go to Cork and Park, and the players did very well to get out of that. And Galway obviously losing that Leinster final, which was poor in quality, as we mentioned already. Do you think Cork are going in better into this game than Galway?
I think they're being a bit more talked about in Galway after the Leinster final. Like, Galway didn't really show their standards in the Leinster final, I suppose. Obviously, there wasn't really many standouts in that game for them. In some sense, they'll be going in under the radar, I think. I think kind of the pressure is nearly on Cork now with the form they've had the last few weeks. It seems to be they're going up in standard every week, so it'll be a good game, I'd say.
Should be a very good game indeed, yeah. And even look at what's interesting to me is the midfield battle, because Joseph Cooley has 215 so far in the championship all from play. You look at Darragh Fitzgibbon, Luke Meade does a job that maybe most people wouldn't want to do, like sit back deep and let Darragh Fitzgibbon do his thing. Like, do you think the Cork midfielders in Fitzgibbon and Meade have enough to deal with the presence of Joseph Cooney?
It depends on where Cooney lines out. Like, the last day, Cathal Mannion was sitting deep and it didn't really suit him at all. So a lot of people are saying, oh, Cooney could drop back this week. But I think him and Fitzgibbon could be a good battle too. Fitzgibbon is on a fine run of form, and it will be interesting to see who goes in next to Joseph Cooney as well. Will it be Tom Monaghan? Obviously, he started off the championship very well. He wasn't great the last day, but there's definitely another spark in him too. So the midfield battle will definitely be interesting.
It definitely will, yeah. And another really interesting aspect of the game is probably Cork's defenders, though against Limerick in the All-Ireland final. I know it was last year, but you could see Robert Downey, Sean O'Donoghue, Niall O'Leary, all they were lacking for pace in that full back line. And when you look at the Galway full forward line in Concannon, Conor Whelan, Cathal Mannion coming from deep as well, obviously Joseph Cooley, Tom Monaghan, them players have some pace. Like, it will be a real challenge for Robert Downey to deal with the presence of Conor Whelan, I would think. Like, he has performed well in the last few games, came in again, back into full back against Waterford, then against Tipperary. He's in a rich vein of form now. But this will be a huge game for Robert Downey, wouldn't it?
There's rumours of him being injured, I think, actually. He went off last week, or I think he did anyway, with a knock. Obviously, Sean O'Donoghue went off with a dead leg last week too, and I think Shane Kingston had a dead leg going into the game. So that's 3 big losses if they're out. Like, but I don't really think if Whelan was on Downey, it wouldn't really happen. I'd say O'Donoghue would be the man to kind of keep with him. O'Donoghue is kind of the lad to stay with it, the star man of any team. He's a brilliant cornerback. Like he was with Tony today. They played us, and obviously Downey's kind of settled into number 3 recently. Obviously, he was wing back the first few weeks, but he seems to have made that number 3 his own. But a lot of people are saying that they'd love to see Jeremy Elrick come in and do a man marking job on Concannon or Whelan. So it'd be interesting to see how that works out.
Well, definitely. Like, Millerick is a surprise. Yeah, he's described as many as probably the best man marker in the game at the moment, even at his young age. So it'll be very interesting to see him. And the Cork half backs, I think, have done excellent in the championship, especially Kieran Joyce at number 6 and Mark Coleman at number 7. They complement the midfield very well as well. Like, Kieran Joyce, like, I think he's an excellent player. He reads the game very well. He doesn't really do the fancy stuff, in all fairness. Like, Mark Coleman does a bit of that. But Kieran Joyce, he's been excellent in this championship so far.
He has, yeah. He had a very good league too, and to just slot into centre back at 19 years of age that effortlessly, like, and Mark Coleman kind of has the freedom of wing back to get up the pitch with him. He offers that kind of cover there, and obviously he's very versatile too. We saw him play at number 4 this year. We saw him at midfield. We saw him wing back. We saw him centre back. Like, he offers that depth around the field as well. But he's having some year.
He is definitely, and even look at the averages of scoring and conceding. Like, on scoring, Galway have actually scored more than Cork on average, but you could argue that's against lesser opposition with Laois and Westmeath and Leinster as well. The interesting thing is, though, Galway have conceded way less than Cork in terms of averages. They've conceded an average of less than 4 points a game. So, you know, will that stand for Galway? Do you think Galway's defence is better than Cork, or the stats line there? And do you think Laois and Westmeath were kind of easier for Galway?
I suppose Munster is a lot different to Leinster in some sense. Like I was looking at a thing earlier on the top scorers, and the majority of the top 5 are Leinster, which is a crazy stat. Obviously, the likes of Lee Chin and all will put up big scores against the likes of the Kerrys and Westmeaths. No disrespect to them, but they're not at the standard of the bigger teams yet, I suppose. But it'll be interesting because the pace of the Cork forwards, and then obviously Galway like to play kind of the physical game, so it'll be very interesting to see how they match up. Like there's a few interesting battles that could go on there, and will Patrick Horgan start is another question too.
It will be, yeah. Like Patrick Horgan is another very interesting aspect. Like he scored 30 points already at the championship, and most of them have come from frees. I think he's only scored 7 from play. He didn't start the last day against Antrim. Most people think he was rested. Like, I don't know, will he start? Like, you look at Shane Barrett there, Alan Connolly's a goal getter. Jack O'Connor hasn't been mentioned much in this championship so far. Like, he was excellent last year. Like, honestly, I know Horgan is brilliant free taker and all that. He's a leader for this Cork team. But do you think, honestly, he'd be better off on the bench as an impact sub for Cork to come on later in the game?
It was hard to tell against Antrim last week, I suppose. They kind of lost their legs in around 50 minutes. But he did have a big impact when he came on, and it wouldn't surprise me to see him have that role for the rest of the year. Obviously, Shane Kingston, there's rumours of him being injured, so Horgan is probably the man to come in if Kingston is injured, or even Kingston is nearly well off the bench as well. So will they revolt back to that, or will they keep Horgan there for now? Shane Barrett has a lot more to offer. I think he's kind of struggling at times, and obviously Jack O'Connor's nearly gone out of the picture in some sense after the year he had last year. I thought he was up there for an All-Star last year. It's very surprising to see him not making 15s this year.
Yeah, definitely. Like Jack O'Connor is actually from a club that I follow very well, SARS. So I hope he recovers very well in this championship. Like he hasn't been given enough minutes, I think. But at the same time, we'll have to see how that plays out. And a bit of word of the Galway defenders, actually, Fintan Burke and Park Manning have actually hit a good total. Fintan Burke, obviously, from sidelines, he's been absolutely outstanding. Gareth McInerney in the centre-back role. Darren Morrissey at cornerback. Like, Galway seem to score a lot for defence as well. So, do you think them defenders could come out of their shell against Cork? Or do you think the likes of, let's just say, Conor Lehan and all of them could stop them coming forward? Or do you think they'd be into the kind of marking the defenders game?
It'll be interesting enough, because if they do kind of want to get forward, they're going to break Cork's structure in some sense. I know Robbie O'Flynn is the type of player that'll drop back anyway. He's very good. I rate him highly. With the likes of Lehan or someone, are they going to track the likes of Fintan Burke up the field if he goes up? Because obviously he has an eye for a shot as well. And obviously their two cornerbacks are playing well too. Darren Morrissey and Jack Grealish has been very, very good as well. And Daithí Burke is just immense. He's one of the best fullbacks in the country. Like,
yeah, absolutely. It'd be very interesting to see how Cork counteract that Galway scored trait for the defenders. And the final prediction, I suppose, do you think Cork can carry their form into another All-Ireland semi-final, or do you think Galway will get over the line this time in Thurles?
Oh, it's hard to call. I've been thinking of this all week. Like what way will it go? Just they're evenly matched in some sense, but Cork have the pace and Galway have the physicality, I suppose. So it kind of depends on who plays into whose system. It's a tough one. I'll go Galway to edge just based on Leinster. They were very good before the Leinster final, and obviously that kind of dampened them down a bit to most people, so they'll go under the radar, I think.
Yeah, it is a very, very tough one to call, isn't it? Seeing as you said Galway, I'm going to make it interesting. I'm just going to go for Cork in this one. I'm going to say 1 or 2 points. I'm going to go 1 or 2 points.
I'd say the same with Galway. The Antrim were very good versus Cork last week. Keelan Malloy and Dara Fitzgibbon was a great battle too. So it'll be interesting to see who Fitzgibbon matches up with, because he's a serious threat as well. And then obviously Alan Connolly's having a brilliant year too, and Conor Lehan has got, I think, 219 from play. So that's some scoring.
Yeah, it's unreal. Especially when Lehan was dropped from the panel last year, came back after his form with Middleton. the club champions last year. He was absolutely excellent that championship. But we're agreed to disagree here. You're gonna say Galway win, I'll go Cork. But we'll have to see though. Very interesting game to look forward to on RT2 at 1:45. The next game is between Clare and Wexford. Now, most people would say Clare are real favourites for this game, considering Rory Hayes and Peter Duggan are coming back live in RT2, of course. But Wexford, like I've mentioned this to Seamus Brady for the Play on GAA podcast earlier today. Check that podcast out if you haven't already. That Wexford have beaten Clare in the league in Cusack Park. Most people seem to forget that. Do you think clutching at straws a small bit? No doubt I think Clare will win the game. But do you think I'm clutching at straws a bit to give Wexford a bit of a chance? Or do you think there's a point to be made there?
Oh, there's a point to be made. Like, in Clare, it's not really like, oh, we'll meet Limerick in All Ireland finals, or oh, we'll see Kilkenny in Croke Park in a few weeks' time. It's kind of, we'll take one game at a time, and we're not bringing Wexford down to a poor team either. Like Damien Rack, for example, he's having some year, and just they're improving game by game. Like today in Kilkenny, they were brilliant, and we've a very good record against them in the championship. They're probably the team we meet the most outside of Munster, but you can never write them off really. Lee Chin is finding his form. Rory O'Connor has a big game in him, so Rory Hayes will have his hands full after that, getting that band done. So that'll be a very interesting matchup too. But I wouldn't write Wexford off, but I'd expect us to do it. But there'd definitely be a challenge in it. Like, I wouldn't see us walking all over them.
It would be definitely a challenge. Like I just looked at scoring statistics there. It's actually interesting. Clare have actually averaged a better scoring rate than Wexford, despite Wexford playing against Westmeath, Laois, and Kerry and all them teams. But in conceding, Wexford have conceded a lot less. Now, that probably indicates to me, especially their first match of the league against Limerick, which was, I think, 11-9 or something like that Wexford can be quite defensive. Now, will that be a problem for Clare, counteracting that defensive system? Or do you think the likes of Tony Kelly, Peter Duggan will take that challenge in their stride?
Well, Wexford could do a few things with their defence. They seem to switch it up a fair bit. Like, you could see Dee O'Keefe drop into a sweeper, and they usually man-mark Tony Kelly. Like Shane Reck man-marked him last year. I'd expect Damien to do it this year. Obviously, Shane's only coming back from injury, so I wouldn't expect him to be starting. But Damien's having a brilliant year. Like, he did very well in Owen Cody a few weeks ago, so he can play anywhere in that back line. He can do any role. He's well up to score too. But I don't think we'll play into their system either. I think if they drop a man back, it kind of suits John Conlon, because he'll be able to drop back and prevent the threat of reach in if he's inside. Conor McDonald, Rory O'Connor will probably be zoning in and out too. So I think it'll suit us in some sense. I don't think we'll play into the system too much.
Yeah, most definitely so. And I suppose a lot of people would have talked about Clare Wexford. They would have described us as the Brian Lohan and Davy Fitz derby. Davy Fitz is gone now. Obvious. Dara Fitzgibbon or Dara Egan's come in as Wexford manager. Like, do you think the rivalry is still there between the two sides, or do you think with Davy leaving, the rivalry is, down a bit over the last few weeks, or do you think Wexford will still be hungry to beat Clare? There'll be a few battles to look at.
Yeah, Wexford will be raring to go, especially the record they have against us in recent years. Obviously, we beat them last year. We beat them in 2022. We seem to meet them most years, and we have quite a solid record against them in recent times. But there's definitely some brilliant matchups, like Conor Cleary and Conor McDonald. Depending if Lee Chin is inside, I'd say Cleary could take him. I'd expect Damien Reck to man-mark Tony Kelly. We could see John Conlon and Lee Chin, Rory Hayes and Rory O'Connor be a brilliant battle too. And around the middle third as well, we've the likes of Cathal Malone, Dave Fitzgerald, Ryan Taylor is having a brilliant year too. So the middle third will also be interesting. They've obviously the likes of Liam McGovern around the middle third, so that battle will be an intriguing one as well.
It's interesting actually looking at the Clare scores. A lot of people would have said last year, including myself sometimes, that Tony Kelly would have been the main man for Clare, and if you watch him, you'll deal with Clare right. But when you look at their scores, other than Peter Duggan, who's come back from Australia as well, David Fitzgerald, he scored 2 for, not the former goalkeeper, not the former manager. This is another David Fitzgerald here from midfield. He's a very good player. 2-14 in the championship so far, all from play. Ryan Taylor's done excellent as well. Shane O'Donnell was interesting. Like, he is a very good player. I was reading on the Mirror, I think, yesterday that his career could have ended last year. And to come back, to score 9 points so far in the championship, to have such an influence on the Clare team, to get player of the month as well, of course, that's going to breathe confidence on a ton. Like, and there's a lot of these players stepping up in the Munster Championship and will do definitely on Saturday as well.
Yeah, Dave Fitzgerald has been brilliant. The potential has always been there in David. I think he's been very good for his club. He's usually a wing back for them, but he was centre forward for us a few times the last few years, and I think midfield suits him because he's such a direct runner. But at times as well, he's kind of, when Tony Kelly's given the free roam, he's kind of the winger centre forward as well, so he's well able to score. Obviously, Ryan Taylor has been immense around the middle, and yeah, that interview with Shane O'Donnell was very eye opening. Like, to have a concussion that serious and to come back and win hurler of the month in your first championship year in 2 years nearly, just wing forward, he seems to be in a league of his own. Like, he's just deadly in the air, and I think it kind of suits him run towards goal as well. But it wouldn't surprise me if he is seen inside at some stage, because obviously he was a serious threat in there as well.
I was chatting to Seamus Brady from the Play on GAA podcast as well about the prospect of Wexford playing their younger players like Oisin Foley and Oisin Pepper in this game. Like, Pepper was very good in the league campaign, scored a goal in that league campaign against Galway, I think it was. Oisin Foley scored in that goal in that last game against Kilkenny, where they played excellent as well. You also have Rory O'Connor, Conor McDonald, Lee Chid, some excellent forwards. Do you expect them younger players like Pepper and Foley to start in this game, or do you think Darragh Egan will keep them in reserve to come on later in the game?
I'd expect Foley to start, yeah. I presume Jack O'Connor will start and Liam McGolford, and they'll probably be around the middle third anyway. I'd say Oisin Foley will start because he's having quite a good year. Obviously, Rory O'Connor and Lee Chin and McDonald, they're nailed down. There's incredible hurlers. But yeah, I definitely expect Oisin Foley to start anyway. He's having a very good year and he seems to be playing very well in their system. Whereas I think Oisin Pepper, I think he's only about 18, so it would be a lot of pressure on him to start. But I'd say he'd come off the bench anyway because he's a very good impact sub to have.
Yeah, definitely. So, and there's an interesting aspect as well that Clare, off the back of a Munster campaign where they did excellent, then they lost the Munster final after extra time. It was an unbelievable battle. But I think Aaron from GAA Fan TV, Aaron Prendergast, made the point to me that all the provincial finalists in football lost last weekend. Like, I'm predicting obviously a Galway loss in the game we were talking about previously. I still think Clare are going to win this game, but do you think there's an element there? There's an element to be scared there of a side that the confidence might be gone out of the team. They put so much into that Limerick game in the Munster final. Do you think there's an element there that Wexford could, give Clare a shock?
I wouldn't dig too much into the football type of thing. I wouldn't write Wexford off, but I expect us to win it. The spirit in the county is good, and everyone's very proud of the lads to keep with Limerick for 90 minutes. Like, the conditioning is obviously there, and the hurling is obviously there too. I presume they'll be ready physically, and I think Brian will have them ready mentally too. And actually, I think Cathal Dunbar is out for this game, and around the middle last year he caused rack versus us, so he'll be a very big loss. I think he tore his hamstring. Mikey Dwyer was an injury out, but I think Darragh Egan has kind of cleared the air on that as well after the Kerry game. But I think we'll have enough to still win this. Obviously, they'll be kicking themselves over the Munster final. There's probably times they think they could have won it, but I don't think they'll be too affected mentally. I think they'll be going out to win this game, and obviously the goal at the end of the year probably to get another shot at Limerick.
Yeah, absolutely. That'll be the dream, really, for any Clare fan to go to an All-Ireland final first since 2013. That'll be some achievement. We obviously both think Clare will win the game, but how much are you saying? Are you saying less than 10 points or possibly over that?
I'd say about 4-6. I can't see Wexford being kind of brushed off that easily. They're still a very good side, and obviously they're improving week by week. Like the draw with Galway the first day, they were probably a bit lucky, and then the last to Dublin, but Kilkenny, and obviously they gave Kerry quite a hammering last week too, so their spirits will probably be high as well.
I suppose it's what Wexford turns up. Like Wexford are quite inconsistent with their performance. We'll have to see, but other way, I think Clare will win this game. I think it'll be about 7 to 8 points. I think Clare are just too good for Wexford, in all honesty, but we'll see about that result though on Saturday. And on Sunday though, we're moving on to the football, onto the Tailteann Cup semi-finals in Croke Park. Before we get into the two semi-finals, of course, Sligo, Cavan and Offaly against Westmeath. What have you been in the Tailteann Cup so far? Like, for me, absolutely, it's been brilliant. And your account, my account, Scorpio, all them accounts have done so well to promote it. It's a credit to everybody. And these players are getting so much credit, and it's long overdue, in my opinion. I was a bit skeptical looking at this competition from the outset, but looking at it so far, I think it's going pretty well.
It is going well, yeah. Just to see the games in GAA go, the standard of football is definitely there. And there's some top players that you can see every week on GAA Go as well. And just it's been promoted fairly well. Be nice, I suppose, for every county to get maybe 2 or 3 games. Like I think next year it'll be a round robin system. So this year the knockout aspect, it was interesting as well. Like Carlow knocking out Tipperary or Leitrim and knocking out Antrim, like 2 of the top contenders, you could say. It just shows that even in the lower tiers that the shocks can be done as well, and it gives them their own platform as well, which is good for the players that haven't played in Croke Park. Like I was listening to Andy Moran and Off the Ball, and he was saying Emlyn Mulligan's had, I think, nearly 100 appearances for Leitrim. He's only played in Croke Park once, and that was the 2019 Division 4 final. Like,
yeah, that's brilliant to see. In fairness, like Elba Mulligan, outstanding player. There's a lot of outstanding players there. Niall McNamee, I think, has been mentioned a lot, and he'll be playing on Sunday in Croke Park. John Hazelin scored 223 in the whole championship so far. He's been absolutely outstanding. But we'll talk about these players. First of all, Sligo against Cavan live at 1:45 on RT2. It's great that it's on RT2, though, that I mentioned it. It's absolutely brilliant to see that. Even the games on GAA Go, I think Antrim Leitrim was on it. 2 other games in the quarterfinals as well. So it was absolutely brilliant to see that. But this game is actually interesting because a lot of people would have said Cavan would win this competition at a canter. I said in one of the predictions on multiple podcasts that Sligo would win it. I feel that Sligo would win it. So one of these sides is going to go out on Sunday. Like, this should be a very interesting game in Croke Park.
it should be, and hopefully be crowded at 2, obviously, especially Sligo. It'll be their first time in Croke Park in quite a while. But I'd back Cavan to win it out too, to be honest with you. Just even in Ulster, the fights they put up, like they whitewashed Antrim in some sense, and they're really stuck with Donegal as well. There's some top footballers, like Thomas Galligan is playing very well. Paddy Lynch is very good in the forwards. I think he's got a huge tally this year. I think it's something around 254, which is huge in league and championship. They're fairly balanced too. Like Rob McKiernan is still kicking points, and obviously Padraig Faulkner at the back is very impressive, and Raymond Galligan is a great leader to have too. But the underage success in Sligo as well will definitely be a driving force for them. And I'd say a few of the under-20 team probably got a call up as well.
Yeah, they definitely did. I heard Jack Lavin got a call up to this Sligo team. So yeah, it's absolutely brilliant to see that. And I suppose Sligo, they've gone through 2 extra time periods in the Tailteann Cup against London and Leitrim. They've played all Connacht teams so far in the competition. Like, I do rate Sligo, and obviously I'd say you rate Sligo yourself as well. But do you think there's an element there that Sligo have been lucky to get to the semi-final, considering they have to go through 2 extra time periods against London and Leitrim, like 2 sides in many years that most people would think are to be easily beaten?
Leitrim was always going to be a test, just the local derby. Sligo would have been my dark horse for the start of the year, but Cavan is a very tough test as well. Obviously, Alan Riley has been very good for Sligo. They're very lucky against Leitrim from what I saw. Disallowed goal for Leitrim for a square ball, and to be honest, I don't think it really was a square ball. but they showed great courage in the penalties as well. And obviously London had a great year, so you couldn't really expect them to breeze past London either after the year they had.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talked about Cavan there doing so well. Like in the Ulster Championship, they were so unlucky against Donegal. Most people would argue the 2 goals were just so fortunate for Donegal, and Cavan kind of got very unlucky there. They hammered Antrim unexpectedly. Like a lot of people thought that would be a tighter game than it was. For Fermanagh, they got over them easily as well. Like I was actually so surprised at Cavan's team sheets as well, looking at Scorpio and RT Sport and all that. They're actually taking the competition very seriously. I don't know if that surprised you at all, but like Thomas Gallagher, Patrick Faulkner, they're all sticking to this team. That's a brilliant sign that they want to win this competition.
It is, yeah. Obviously this is All Ireland now, so I suppose they're kind of looking at it like we have to go win this, and obviously this be, if they do win this, it'll be their second piece of silver here in Croke Park for the year. Like, they're a very well balanced team. The depth is definitely there too. Like when you see their bench, it's very good as well. Obviously the Galligans are sticking around, which says a lot, and a lot of that 2020 panel are still there. Like Martin Riley is still going, and he's been some servant.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Cavan look very strong, I have to say. Like I might be my words in the prediction, but I think Cavan might just have enough. What do you think, Gero? Do you think Cavan will have enough to win this game, or do you think Sligo could pull off another shock in this game?
I think the style of play Cavan do have full suit Croke Park, and I think Sligo will struggle to break their structure as well, and I could kind of put their structure out of place. Obviously, Tony McEntee's a great manager, and he's brought Sligo on huge strides, and obviously since the Ulster Championship win in 2020 for Cavan, they've kind of declined a bit to many people, with the young lads coming through like O'Reilly and Paddy Lynch. They'll be raring to go for a big game in Croke Park, and I couldn't really look past them, to be honest. I'd say by about 6 or 7.
I'd probably have to agree with you. I'll go 6 or 7. I know I'm eating my words. I say Sligo will win it all along, but I just think Cavan will probably get the job done here. Look at Sligo, look at the 2 sides of the championship so far, and very exciting game to look forward to. And the other Tailteann Cup semi-final is also live at 4 o'clock in Croke Park. It's Leinster rivals, Offaly against Westmeath. This is a huge game now between these 2 Leinster rivals, and it's brilliant to see the likes of Niall McNamee and John Hazen in Croke Park as well. Wouldn't you agree?
It is, yeah. It just shows the quality of this idea, I suppose. Like Niall McNamee has been unbelievable for Offaly for years, and it's just great to see them type of players get their chance in Croke Park as well.
It is definitely, and there is, I don't know, and I was thinking about this when Cork got over Limerick last week. Cork could have been in the Tailteann Cup in this semi-final against Westmeath, but on the flip side, Offaly could have been in an All-Ireland quarter-final against Dublin. Like, is that playing on the Offaly players' minds, or do you think they're kind of focused on the job? Like, that would have been an unbelievable opportunity if Offaly just got over that hurdle against Cork in the league.
Well, I suppose they had to get past Limerick, and that wouldn't be an easy challenge if Cork did end up going down. Obviously, Offaly will feel unlucky in the league. I think there was a few debatable decisions that went against them in the 2 games against Meath and Cork, so they'll definitely be kicking themselves after that. But like, their main focus at the minute is this tournament, and there's no better man than John Mahon and the amount of years he's been in management to get them focused on this type of game.
Yeah, definitely. John Mahon's an excellent manager, and even I think it was Johnny Maloney that was mic'd up for AIB the other day, and it was actually interesting to see what goes on the field as well. They were so committed to try and win a game against New York, even though it looked on the highlights or somebody watching it, it looked like Offaly were always in control of that game, but they were always trying to get better, always trying to improve in that game, and that has to be brilliant for a side like Offaly to improve in years to come.
Yeah, I really like the idea of having players mic'd up. I'm surprised they agreed to be honest with you. I think it was Johnny Maloney and Rory McNamee that last obviously they wanted to keep going against New York, and I suppose New York, it's kind of a different aspect for them. It's nice to see them be getting a few more games in Championship each year as well, and obviously they have some quality players too. They put it up to Sligo in the Connacht Championship. But Offaly, they're just the Division 2 kind of standard stood to them too, because there's a lot of challenges in that. Now, see, they put it up to some teams as well. Even Galway, they gave them a fair old battle too.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Offaly were excellent in that Division 2 campaign, and I suppose the focus is this semi-final. And I don't know what you think about Westmeath. I think they're going under the radar a bit. Like I would say Sligo would win the competition. Cavan was a lot of people's bets as well. Fermanagh was up there Offaly because of their under 20 win last year. But I think I look at Westmeath's panel. You have John Haslam, that outstanding forward there as well. Ronan O'Toole, Sam McCartan, Luke Loughlin, Ray Kennellan. Like these are excellent players, and like I'm surprised that a lot of people aren't tipping Westmeath to win this competition. They have some excellent players on the pitch.
They do, yeah, and obviously they only lost by 3 points against Kildare a few weeks ago, so they'll definitely be trying to build on that because they were very good that day. Obviously, they got to go very early on, and John Haslam is having a brilliant year. I've been very impressed with Sam McCartan too. I think he's playing a stormer since he went to wing forward. But Niall Darby is a huge loss for Offaly too. I saw he did his cruise ship, and obviously he'd be a key player for them.
Yeah, it'd be a definite huge loss for Offaly. And I suppose look at the two managers, John Mahon and Jack Cooley. Like John Mahon would obviously be the most experienced coach. To be honest, like he coached Mayo, of course, did very well there. He's come to Offaly, done a very good job. But Jack Cooley is a coach that the Westmeath players seem to be buying into as well. So the battle between these two coaches seemed to be very good. And even I was thinking last year I was interviewing one of Westmeath's players on the podcast, coincidentally, James Dolan, and they were saying they were getting along well with Jack Cooley. He's their first Westmeath-based manager in years, and that has to be good for the team in general. They have some very good players as well. So do you think Jack Cooley's going in under the radar as well, below the likes of John Mahon?
He is, yeah. John Mahon's kind of set his marker down the game, obviously, with us. He won the Munster title in 1992, and that says how long he's been around. He's been managing since he was a young enough lad. The spirits are definitely high in Westmeath, and you couldn't really look past him. Like, it wasn't long ago when they were one of the better Division 2 sides. Like, even 2021, they put it up to Mayo and Cusack Park, and you could say in some sense they were unlucky to go down that year since it was the splits. But it's hard to call this game too. Obviously, Westmeath have had their big moments in Croke Park, and obviously Offaly had their under 20 victory there. They played a Division 3 final there too, so they'll be raring to go there again.
Even thinking of Westmeath's league campaign, actually, they came down to Cork, Páirc Uí Chaoimh relegation battle. They scored 25 points and still went down. I mean, like against Mayo as well, they were absolutely outstanding. Against Meath. But this is the caveat with Westmeath, I think. Like in the other game in that league campaign against Down, a side that have been shambolic in the last 2 years, Westmeath lost to them. So is there kind of an element there that Westmeath, they perform very well against the big sides, but then the Tailteann Cup or the All-Ireland Series or Division 4 or the league campaign or whatever, they seem to fall short against smaller teams. Would you agree with that, or do you think that was a one-off against Down last year?
I'd say in some sense it was a one-off. Just they were well able to keep with the big teams too. Obviously Down are kind of struggling at the minute. There's a lot of drama going on up there with the manager and the Kilcoo kind of stories as well. They're nearly in the news for bad things than good things at this stage. But I think Westmeath will be to their senses that they can't take anything for granted, and I think they've proved that in the Tailteann Cup so far as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Like this is a very difficult game to call. Like most people would say Cavan would win the previous game against Sligo. They're favourites for a reason. But this game's very, very close to call. I don't know what you think, Gearoid. I'm going to go... I think Westmeath will win it by a point. I don't know what you think. I'm going to go Westmeath. I think Offaly have underwhelmed a small bit. They lost to Wexford, let's not forget, the Leinster Championship. So what do you think? Do you think Westmeath will have enough, or do you think Offaly will get to the Tailteann Cup final?
I'm going to go against you. I'm going to say Offaly by one. I'll say a Niall McNamee outside of the boot last minute. But Offaly, obviously, no Cormac Egan, no Niall Darby. Niall Darby will be a huge loss. And I saw an interview with John Mahan earlier, and he said the panel are shattered with his loss. Obviously, he's a brilliant footballer, but there's definitely quality there to come in. Obviously, the other cornerback, Lee Pearson, has been very good, and he's just up from he was under 20 captain this year, I think. So they've definitely the youth coming through as well. But I think there's no better man than John Mahan to have them in the zone for this game.
Interesting in this podcast, we've had 2 games where we agree to disagree. So yeah, it's great for the listeners, I suppose, great for the viewers on YouTube. But yeah, those were games this weekend. Those are the predictions. And I thank you, Gearoid, for coming on to the podcast. And just a reminder where you could find GAA Editz around social media.
The Instagram anyway is GAA Editz, and just the Z and then the same to TikTok. And I have a Twitter recently as well. If you search up the exact same thing, it should come up. So that's all really.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Gearoid, for coming on to the podcast, and enjoy the games at the weekend, especially the Clare Wexford one. Should be a very good game.
Yeah, thanks. I'm heading down to that, so it'll be interesting enough.